As I lay in bed, listening to my fiancé's gentle snores beside me, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. Not that we didn't have our disagreements, but the past few months had taken a toll on our relationship. I'd caught him staring at his phone multiple times during our dates, and his responses to my queries seemed evasive. I tried to brush it off as paranoia, but the nagging feeling persisted. That's when I remembered the words he'd spoken on our last dinner date: "Transparency is key in our relationship, my love. I promise you, I'll be honest with you no matter what." I'd taken those words as a reassuring sign that our issues were minor and that our communication was stronger than ever. But as I glanced at the clock, the 3 a.m. hour looming like a specter, I felt a sudden urge to investigate his phone. It wasn't the first time I'd snooped, but I rationalized that I was doing it for my own peace of mind. What if he was in trouble, or what if there was an issue I needed to address? My rationalizations crumbled as I spotted his phone charging on the other side of the room. It would be easy to access, he'd left it unlocked. My heart began racing as I picked up phone and navigated to the apps. Social media was open, with multiple notifications from a woman he'd introduced me to as Sarah, a coworker and friend. My initial curiosity morphed into concern when I saw the timestamp of the last message was from just hours ago, at 1 a.m. My eyes widened as I scrolled down to find a conversation that seemed innocent enough at first glance. It turned out Sarah was more than just a coworker, and she'd been reaching out to him late at night for weeks. The realization sent a shiver down my spine. My gaze drifted across the room, taking in the familiar contours of his face even as my mind reeled from the implications. Had he been lying to me all along? I thought back to our previous discussions about trust, how he'd assured me that we were open with each other and that we'd overcome any issue that came our way. But it seemed like there was more to it than that. The laptop beneath the bed where the phone lay beckoned me to take a closer look. It took less than 5 seconds to boot up the system and navigate to the email section. The first message in his inbox made my stomach drop. It was an email from Sarah, detailing their plans for a weekend getaway. The tone of the message was casual and flirtatious, sending a wave of nausea through me. The email had been sent just days ago, on Thursday morning. I couldn't help but wonder if this was a secret affair. My eyes continued to scan the inbox, taking in the sheer number of messages from various names I didn't recognize and names that I did. It was as if he had been leading a double life, with me being just a part of it. My heart felt heavy as I began to sift through emails, my mind racing with questions. What had I missed? Was I truly blind to all of this, or had I just chosen to ignore it? I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been played. As I scrolled through the inbox, I began to realize the enormity of what I'd stumbled upon. There were messages from multiple women, with each conversation revealing a new thread of deceit. He'd assured me of his commitment to me, that we were in this together. The realization made me sick to my stomach. The messages from the last few weeks revealed a pattern. Sarah had been sending messages to him late at night, sometimes multiple times a day. The conversations were a mix of casual chats and deeper, more intimate discussions. It seemed like a carefully guarded secret had been staring me in the face all along. My anger began to boil as I realized the extent to which he'd deceived me. How had he done this? Had he been planning this behind my back? I replayed our conversations in my head, thinking about all the times he'd told me that we were good, that we were working through our issues. The lies, the manipulations, and the gaslighting began to make sense. I forced myself to keep scrolling, to keep reading. Each new message was like a slap in the face, a harsh reminder of how he'd treated me. It was like I was trapped in a nightmare from which I couldn't wake up. As I read on, the room began to spin and I felt lightheaded. My vision blurred for a moment, and I had to sit down abruptly, my hand clutching my chest. I couldn't breathe. It was as if the air had been sucked right out of me. I knew I had to get out of the room. I had to get out of this place. I felt like I was trapped in a toxic bubble, a toxic relationship that had been slowly poisoning me. I needed fresh air and I needed to clear my head. As I stumbled out of the room, I couldn't help but wonder how I'd missed all these signs. Had I been blind, or had I just refused to see? The thought sent a chill down my spine. How many other secrets had he been keeping from me? The betrayal. As I sat on the couch trying to gather my thoughts, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. It was like I'd been punched in the gut and I couldn't catch my breath. How had he done this to me? How could he be so cruel? I replayed our relationship in my head, trying to pinpoint the moment he began to drift away. It wasn't until I saw his phone that I realized the extent of his deception. All those times he'd assured me that we were doing fine, that we were working through our issues, they were all lies. I felt tears streaming down my face as the reality of our situation sank in. Our relationship, which had once felt so strong and loving, had been built on a foundation of deceit and lies. The man I thought I knew was a stranger who had manipulated me with his words and actions. As I sat there trying to process the emotions swirling inside me, I couldn't help but wonder what the future held. Was I going to forgive him? Was I going to try to work through this? The questions swirled in my head, but the one question that kept coming back was, how could he do this to me? As I stared blankly at the wall, I couldn't help but think of all the times he'd promised me transparency. He'd promised me honesty and commitment. But it seemed like that was all a lie. The thought sent a wave of pain through me, a pain that seemed to pierce my heart. I knew I had to be strong for myself. I had to be the one who took control of this situation. I had to be the one who demanded answers. But the questions kept piling up in my head. What else had he lied to me about? What secrets was he still hiding? As the tears continued to fall, I knew that this was just the beginning. This was just the start of a long and difficult journey, a journey that would take me through the depths of heartbreak and betrayal. But it was a journey I had to take because I was the one who deserved the truth. The fallout. The hours that followed were a blur of emotions, a mix of anger, sadness, and confusion. I couldn't stop thinking about the messages, about the secrets he'd kept hidden. I couldn't stop replaying our conversations in my head, wondering how I'd missed all the signs. As I sat in the silence trying to process everything, I couldn't help but feel a sense of numbness. It was as if I'd been living in a dream world, a world where everything was perfect. But the reality was far from perfect. The reality was that our relationship was a lie. I knew I had to talk to him, to confront him about what I'd found. But the thought was daunting, a thought that made my stomach twist with anxiety. What would he say? Would he admit to lying to me? Would he try to convince me that it was all just a big misunderstanding? The questions swirled in my head, but I knew I had to take a stand. I had to stand up for myself, for my own worth and dignity. I was more than just a victim of his deception. I was more than just a fool for loving him. As I took a deep breath and stood up from the couch, I knew that this was just the beginning of a long and difficult journey. A journey through the depths of heartbreak and betrayal, but also a journey of self-discovery and healing. I was ready to take the first step, to face the unknown and to reclaim my life. The confrontation. As I walked into the bedroom, I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I knew that this was it, the moment of truth. I'd be facing him and I'd be demanding answers. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself down, but my nerves were on edge. I saw him sleeping peacefully, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I knew that I had to wake him up, to confront him about what I'd found. I took a step forward, my hands on my hips, and cleared my throat to get his attention. "Hey, wake up," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He stirred, rubbing his eyes, and sat up in bed. "What's wrong?" he mumbled. I took a deep breath and dove in. "I know what you've been doing," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "I know about Sarah, about the messages, about the secret affair." His face went white as he sat up straight, his eyes wide with panic. "What are you talking about?" he stammered. "Don't play dumb," I said, my voice firm. "I know all about it. And I want answers. I want to know why you lied to me, why you kept this a secret from me." He looked away, avoiding my gaze, and I knew that I had him right where I wanted him. I knew that he was cornered, that he had no choice but to confront the truth. "Please, just listen to me," he said, his voice cracking with emotion. But I wasn't having it. I wasn't having him try to explain, try to justify his behavior. I wanted the truth, and I wanted it now. "No," I said, my voice firm. "I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear your excuses or your justifications. What I want is the truth. And I want it now." He looked up at me, his eyes filled with regret, but I wasn't having it. I wasn't going to be swayed by his apologies or his promises. All I wanted was the truth. The breakup. As the days went by, the tension between us grew thicker. The atmosphere in the house was heavy, and the conversations were strained. He was trying to make amends, to convince me that he was sorry for what he'd done, but I wasn't buying it. I knew that I deserved better, that I deserved a man who would respect me, who would love me truthfully. And I knew that I'd been blind to our relationship, blind to the signs that he was leading a double life. The breakup was inevitable, but it was still a difficult conversation. We sat down on the couch, facing each other, and I knew that I had to be strong. I knew that I had to be the one to end it, to end the relationship that had been a lie. "I deserve better than this," I said, my voice firm. "I deserve a man who will love me truthfully, a man who will respect me. And I know that you can't give me that." He looked down, avoiding my gaze, but I knew that he knew I was right. He knew that he'd let me down, that he'd broken my trust. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's too late for sorry," I said, my voice shaking with emotion. "It's too late for apologies. What I want is a commitment to change, to be honest, to be truthful. But I know that you can't do that. Not now, not ever." He looked up at me, his eyes filled with regret, and I knew that I was making the right decision. I was making the decision to walk away, to leave him behind and start anew. As we parted ways, I knew that I was taking the first step towards healing, towards rebuilding my life. I was taking the first step towards finding myself, towards finding my true self. And as I walked out of that house, I knew that I was leaving behind a relationship that had been a lie, a relationship that had almost consumed me, but I was not consumed. I was not broken. I was stronger than that.